Training like a superhero seemed at first like a simple idea, almost childish, perhaps even a little ridiculous for someone who carries the weight of adult routine, the burden of identical days, the accumulated fatigue that no one sees. But the truth is that deep down, there's a part of us that never fully grows up. A silent, guarded part that still believes in strength, in courage, in transformation. The same part that once watched heroes on TV and thought, what if I could be like that? It was that voice that called to me. It wasn't about capes, masks, or powers. It was about recovering something I had lost without realizing it. The feeling of power over myself. There's a kind of strength that doesn't show up in the mirror, but it appears when you need to get out of bed on a bad day or keep going when nobody's watching. That's what made me decide. For 30 days, I would train like a superhero, with discipline, with intention, with courage, or at least with what I still believed to be courage. On the first day, the fantasy seemed bigger than reality. My head was saying, "You can do it." My body responded, "He is sure?" There's a brutal difference between imagining strength and producing strength, between wanting transformation and deserving it. And that difference became clear right from the first repetitions. My chest burned, my arms trembled, my breath left me. The image of a hero I had built in my mind collapsed like wet paper. I realized that, even with all the motivation, my body hadn't been prepared for anything I was demanding of it. And that's when the first break in expectations happened. When we think of heroes, we think of overcoming challenges, speed, limitless strength, but the reality is much more human and much more painful. The weight of my own body seemed to double. With each exercise, I understood that training like a hero wasn't about performing extraordinary movements, but about confronting the uncomfortable truth of my own limitations. I wasn't prepared, and that's precisely what makes this type of journey necessary. Because training like a superhero isn't about feeling strong. It's about feeling weak and continuing. It's discovering that your body doesn't match your fantasy, at least not at first, and still deciding to go ahead. This decision becomes the first heroic act. In the first few minutes, I realized there's no shortcut to strength. There's no mask that can hide a lack of preparation. There's no fantasy that can withstand the weight of physical reality. But I also realized something else. There is no true transformation that begins comfortably. Training like a superhero, I understand, isn't about becoming invincible. It's about finally confronting what made you vulnerable. And in this confrontation, the first spark of true strength is born. After the initial shock, something curious happened. The pain from the first few days didn't completely disappear, but it shifted. The discomfort became fuel. The weakness became a point of reference. And for some reason I couldn't explain, my body started responding faster than I expected. Each morning felt a little less burdensome. Each repetition felt a little more fluid. For the first time, the fantasy of training like a superhero didn't seem so far-fetched. And that's when the euphoria began. It's almost dangerous how quickly the human body adapts. A slight improvement in performance can turn into a confidence storm. The mirror seemed to reflect a different image. Not exactly stronger, but more vibrant. I noticed small changes in posture, in the way I contracted my muscles, in the sparkle in my eyes. I was far from being a hero, but something inside me believed I was getting close. This feeling is addictive. The first week turned into a series of small victories. I was able to lift faster, do more repetitions, maintain steady breathing. It was as if my body was finally getting the message. And I, for a brief moment, believed in the illusion that progress would always be like this. Increasing, linear, constant. But here's the detail that nobody tells you. Euphoria is the first great enemy of anyone who trains. It emerges silently, captivatingly, almost romantically. It convinces you that everything is working, that you are evolving, that the effort is paying off. It's almost like a honeymoon phase between you and your workout. You arrive excited, leave satisfied, feeling like you're unlocking new levels of strength every day. But the body doesn't grow like that, and evolution has never been so simple. Euphoria creates a deceptive feeling that you've tamed the process, that the hard part is over, that now, yes, you're becoming a superhero. And it was precisely in this exaggerated confidence that the first big mistake began. I stopped paying attention to the signs. I used to train in a faster pace, with even more excitement, with less technique, with less awareness. The euphoria made me believe that the transformation was happening faster than it actually was. It's as if I had traded real work for expectation. And when you train believing only in the feeling and not in the structure, you don't realize the limit is approaching. And when you do realize it, it's too late. The truth about that first week is simple. It wasn't evolution. It was adrenaline. It was excitement. It was the deceptive shine of change before the real impact. And every superhero, before falling, goes through exactly that moment. The one where they believe they are ready, when in reality they are still far away. Very far away. Because euphoria may seem like strength, but in practice, it's just the silence that precedes the fall. The euphoria was short-lived, and perhaps that was for the best, because nothing knocks you down faster than believing you're invincible. The truth is, by the second week, my body started to show its effects. The initial momentum could no longer sustain the weight of the challenge. My muscles, once motivated, now screamed. My breathing slowed, my posture faltered, and the heroic fantasy, the one that seemed so real at the beginning, began to crack. It was here that I discovered something that no movie tells you. The fall always comes when you believe you can't fall anymore. At first, I thought it was just fatigue. Those joint pains, the strange weight on my shoulders, the difficulty completing simple sets. It seemed normal. After all, every workout requires overcoming challenges, right? Wrong. There is a stark difference between the effort that builds and the effort that destroys. And I was in the second type. The fall isn't as dramatic as we imagine. It's not a cinematic moment. It's slow, progressive, silent. It begins with small failures, micro-suppressions, poorly executed repetitions. You try to disguise it, try to speed it up, try to compensate, but each attempt only sinks the body further into a cycle of wear and tear. And then comes the moment when you realize you're no longer evolving. You are struggling to avoid regressing. Training like a superhero seemed, at first, like a beautiful metaphor. But when reality hits, it hits harder than any imaginary punch. The heroes who inspire don't show that part. The part where the body fails, the mind fails, and you start to question whether you should even be trying. By the third week, I wasn't waking up with any energy. I would wake up feeling heavy, scared, I'm unsure. The simple act of preparing for the workout seemed bigger than the workout itself. With each repetition, an inner voice asked, "Why are you doing this?" And I had no answer. This is where most people give up, not because it's impossible, but because it's too uncomfortable to admit that we're not as strong as we believe ourselves to be. And it was precisely at that point that I almost stopped. Not because the training was difficult, but because, for the first time, I had to face my own limits without the disguise to protect me. The fall is necessary, and it hurts. But she reveals a truth that transforms. A hero is not born of strength. He is born the moment he breaks. Because when you lose the illusion, only reality remains. And reality is harsher, colder, more honest. It is on this terrain that true strength is built. The third week taught me that there is no superhero without flaws, without falls, without shadows. And I was right in the middle of mine. But the worst was yet to come. The part that nobody sees. The part that almost ruins the journey before it even begins. The fall didn't come alone. It brought something even more uncomfortable. The revelation. The stark truth that I wasn't training like a hero. I was just repeating movements, building strength where I already had strength, and ignoring where I was truly weak. The body speaks, but the ego doesn't listen. And when the ego trains instead of consciousness, sooner or later the bill comes due. And it arrived. The first sign was the imbalance. My chest felt firmer, fuller, more active. It seemed good at first glance, but with each repetition, my shoulders slumped forward. My posture collapsed. My lower back tried to compensate for what my back couldn't support. I was getting stronger, only in what I already did well. What I avoided, what would truly shape a balanced body, remained ignored. Training like a superhero isn't about hypertrophying what you see in the mirror. It's about strengthening what keeps you standing when the blow comes. But I didn't see that. Not at first. And that's when the second flaw emerged. Incorrect breathing. I held my breath where I should have released it. I released it where I should have stabilized. My energy leaked out with every movement. Instead of power, I created fatigue. Instead of stability, I created pressure. Each repetition felt heavier than it should have been, not because the exercise was difficult, but because I was performing it against my own body. The third revelation was even more shocking. My approach was sabotaging my purpose. I thought I was training correctly. I thought I was on the right track. But the more I watched my movements, the more I understood. I wasn't building strength. I was building addiction, crooked movements, short trajectories, rushed pace. All of this accumulated over several consecutive days. My ego said it was intensity, but it was just carelessness disguised as effort. And it was here that I realized something that would completely change the rest of the journey. The Kai, making of a hero, doesn't begin with brute force. It begins with correction. Heroes are not distinguished by the strength they possess, but by the strength they refine. Through the discipline of adjusting, aligning, breathing, and understanding the body. True evolution doesn't happen when you do more, but when you do it right. It was at that moment that I stopped training to prove myself and started training to transform myself. I slowed down. I relearned the basics. I adjusted my posture, range of motion, and breathing. I strengthened my back, shoulder blades, and lower back. I discovered muscles I didn't even know existed, and I finally understood that being a superhero isn't about lifting more weight. It's about carrying your own body consciously. The correction was not a step backward. It was the real beginning of evolution, because strength without balance becomes pain. Strength without technique leads to injury. Strength without conscience becomes ego. But strength with intention leads to transformation. After my body revealed everything I was doing wrong, the turning point arrived. Either I continued deceiving myself by trying to train like an imaginary hero, or I started training like someone who truly wants to improve. And it was here that I discovered the most important part of the journey. The myth ends where discipline begins. Training like a superhero isn't about extraordinary movements, cinematic stunts, or superhuman strength. It's about repeating the basics so consciously, so meticulously, and so consistently that the body has no choice but to change. It's about turning intention into habit, habit in routine, routine in identity. In the fourth week, I removed the fantasy from the forefront and placed the truth at the center. It didn't matter if the exercise seemed too simple or too slow. I would do it right, with control, calmly, precisely. That's when I realized something powerful. Consistency is the superpower that nobody wants to use, but it's the only one that works. The movements began to change from the inside out. What was once rushed became coordinated. What was once disorganized became stable. My breathing found rhythm. My posture found its place. My mind found focus. For the first time since the beginning of the challenge, I wasn't fighting against the workout. I was aligning myself with it. And that's what started the real transformation. I stopped seeking intensity and started seeking intention. Instead of long, poorly executed sets, I prioritized perfect repetitions. Instead of training to failure every day, I trained to excellence. Instead of ignoring weak muscles, I gave them absolute priority. I discovered that discipline isn't about waking up motivated every day. It's about taking action even when nothing in you wants to act. It's about choosing the most difficult path, not because it seems heroic, but because it's the only one that builds something real. And it was at this point that the body finally began to respond as it should. His shoulders opened. The back came alive. The chest no longer dominates everything. The repetitions flowed smoothly. The pain lessened, but the effort did not. The myth became a method. And the more I trained consciously, the more I understood that I didn't need to look like a superhero to start acting like one. A hero isn't someone with infinite strength. A hero is someone who keeps going when their strength runs out. Those who persist when the mind doubts. Those who repeat themselves when their body tells them to stop. Those who return the next day even when the previous day hurt too much. Discipline didn't just transform my training, it transformed how I existed within training. And this change didn't happen suddenly. It happened slowly, almost invisible, but profound enough to redefine everything. That was the moment I realized I wasn't training to be like a superhero. I was training to be someone a superhero would aspire to be. The transformation, then, didn't begin in the muscle. It began with the decision to continue. When the 30 days finally ended, my body was different. Yes, but not in the exaggerated way people expect when they hear the word superhero. I didn't wake up with explosive muscles, superhuman strength, or the appearance of someone who had trained to save the world. What happened was something much deeper, much more real, much more transformative. The first result was physical, of course. My posture was firmer. My back finally supported the chest that had previously dominated everything. My shoulders, once slumped and overloaded, now aligned naturally. My core, which I barely knew how to activate before, became a silent foundation for every movement. My body ceased to be a collection of loose parts and became a complete, coordinated, conscious system. That was the visible transformation, the kind of thing anyone could notice. But what really changed is what nobody sees. Those 30 days showed me that the real battle never happens in the muscles. It happens in the mind. There are workouts that shape the body, and there are workouts that shape character. And training like a superhero, even metaphorically, forced me to confront parts of myself that I had ignored for years. My impatience, my perfectionism, my tendency to give up when it hurts, my obsession with seeking intensity before mastering the basics. Muscle grows with strength. Identity grows with truth. And the truth, I discovered, is simple and harsh. No one changes because they want to. They change because they need to. I needed to regain discipline. I needed to regain consistency. I needed to prove to myself that I was still capable of doing what I had promised, even when no one was watching. Because that's the point that separates fantasy from transformation. A true hero doesn't appear when he's strong. He appears when no one is watching. It was during the quiet days, the exhausting workouts, the awkward repetitions I wanted to avoid, the corrections I didn't want to make, that my identity began to change. It was no longer about training like a superhero. It was about acting like someone who doesn't abandon themselves. At the end of the 30 days, I realized that the transformation wasn't in the exercise, nor the repetitions, nor the training itself. She was making the daily, silent, almost secret decision to continue. And that's what I want to leave you with, the viewer. You don't need to be strong to start. You need to start somewhere to become strong. The most heroic part of training isn't the strength you display. It's the strength you hold on to when no one is watching. If this video resonated with you, leave a comment below. I don't give up on myself. And subscribe to the channel, because your journey doesn't end here. She's only just getting started.